Welcome, and thank you for choosing to spend your quiet time with us. This audiobook novel has been crafted with care, intended as a gentle companion to help you weave a peaceful atmosphere around you, offering a soft space to unwind at the end of your day or whenever you seek a sanctuary of calm. In our story today, Pebbles Smooth in a Pocket, we invite you to step onto a quiet, meandering path alongside Rowan. Here, amidst the gentle sounds of nature and the comforting feel of sun-warmed stone, you'll share in the simple, restorative pleasure of discovering small, smooth treasures, each one a quiet anchor to the present moment. Should you find comfort here and wish for more moments like this, perhaps consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel before you settle in fully and let the world outside gently fade. And now, allow yourself to relax, breathe deeply, and begin this peaceful journey with us. Chapter 1, The Familiar Path. Unfolding, the air, cool and carrying the faintest scent of damp earth and ferns, touched Rowan's face with a gentle greeting. It was the kind of morning where stillness seemed to be the world's natural state, a quietude broken only by the most delicate of sounds. Before Rowan, the Heron Creek Path stretched out, a familiar ribbon of fine, pale gravel winding its way into the soft green landscape. Low, weathered stone walls, their surfaces softened by patches of moss in muted greens and grays, ambled alongside the path, offering a sense of gentle enclosure, a quiet boundary between the walkway and the deeper woods. Ferns, in various stages of unfurling, grew in abundance at the base of these walls, their feathery fronds stirring almost imperceptibly in the subtle currents of air. Rowan began to walk, the pace unhurried, each step deliberate. The fine gravel crunched softly underfoot, a rhythmic, textured sound that was both familiar and comforting. It was a sound that spoke of countless other quiet mornings spent just like this, treading this very same route. Overhead, the branches of mature trees, mostly oak and a scattering of birch, formed a loose canopy. Sunlight, still low in the sky, found its way through the leaves, not in harsh shafts, but as a diffused, gentle radiance. It painted shifting patterns on the path ahead, soft-edged lozenges of light and shadow that danced and swayed with the slow movement of the leaves above. This interplay of light was a constant, silent companion on these walks, ever-changing, yet always present. The path curved gently to the left, and the stone wall on one side gave way to a slightly denser thicket of younger trees and brambles, their leaves of vibrant, fresh green. Here the scent of the earth was a little richer, mingled with the subtle, almost sweet aroma of decaying leaves from seasons past. A natural perfume that spoke of continuity and the slow turning of time. Rowan's gaze drifted often, not in a distracted way, but with a quiet, open awareness. It might settle for a moment on the intricate web a spider had spun between two sturdy blades of grass, glistening with tiny beads of dew that caught the light like miniature pearls, or perhaps on the subtle variations in color on a single broad leaf, its veins a delicate map. There was no destination in mind, no specific goal other than the walk itself, the simple act of moving through this peaceful space. The focus was on the journey, on small details that presented themselves along the way. A small gray feather lay on the path, soft and delicate. Rowan paused, stooping to observe its intricate structure before leaving it undisturbed. Further on, a patch of particularly vibrant moss clung to the side of a lichen-covered stone, its color a deep, almost luminous green against the paler gray. Rowan's fingers might briefly brush against the cool, slightly rough surface of the stone wall, feeling the texture of the ancient rock and the yielding softness of the moss. The sounds were as much a part of the experience as the sights. Beyond the soft crunch of Rowan's own footsteps, there was the occasional distant call of a wood pigeon, its cooing notes mellow and soothing. Sometimes a rustle in the undergrowth would hint at the presence of some small creature, unseen but acknowledged. These sounds were not intrusions, but rather integral parts of the path's quiet symphony, blending into the overarching sense of peace. The air itself seemed to hold a hush, amplifying the gentlest of noises. Rowan breathed it in slowly, deeply, feeling the coolness fill the lungs, a refreshing, clean sensation. The subtle weight of a soft, worn canvas pocket against one hip was a familiar comfort, a silent anticipation of small discoveries yet to be made, though the act of searching was never hurried, always secondary to the simple appreciation of being present on the path. The path continued its gentle meandering, inviting Rowan onward into the quiet embrace of the morning. Each turn revealed a slightly different aspect of the familiar way. A particularly gnarled tree root emerging from the earth like a sleeping creature, or a small cluster of wildflowers, their petals still closed against the early coolness. The light continued its slow, gentle dance, the shadows lengthening and shortening by imperceptible degrees as the sun climbed. Rowan noted the texture of the path itself, the way some sections were more compacted, others looser, the small variations in the color of the gravel, from pale beige to a soft, dusty gray. These were the unremarkable details that, taken together, wove the rich tapestry of the walk, each thread a small observation, a moment of quiet connection with the unfolding serenity of the Heron Creek Path. The simple rhythm of walking, breathing, observing settled into a peaceful cadence, a moving meditation. The world beyond this tranquil corridor seemed very far away, its demands and noises replaced by the gentle insistence of the present moment, held in the cool air and the soft light. The stone walls in places were dotted with tiny, resilient ferns pushing out from the crevices, a testament to nature's quiet persistence. Rowan sometimes paused to look closely at these miniature landscapes, the way the small fronds curled, the almost velvet texture of new growth. It was in these small, often overlooked details that a particular kind of beauty resided, a beauty that asked for nothing but quiet attention. The air felt alive, not with energy, but with a profound, settled calm. There was a sense of immense age in the stones of the wall, in the mature trees that stood as silent sentinels, their branches reaching out like welcoming arms. This path was a sanctuary, a place where the simple act of being was enough, where the quiet heart of the world could be felt in the rustle of a leaf, the warmth of filtered sunbeam, the soft crunch of a footstep. And so, Rowan continued, moving deeper into the morning, the path unfolding with each gentle step. Chapter 2. First Discoveries by the Brook. The gentle incline of the Heron Creek Path began to subtly level out, and a new sound, almost subliminal at first, started to weave its way into the existing tapestry of quiet noises. It was a soft, liquid murmur, a continuous low hum that grew gradually more distinct with each step Rowan took. The character of the path also began to change slightly. The gravel became interspersed with larger, flatter stones, and the vegetation along the edges seemed lusher, the greens more vibrant. The air here felt a fraction cooler, carrying a more pronounced scent of dampness, not unpleasant, but fresh and clean, like the earth after a gentle rain. This was the approach to the brook, a familiar and always welcome point along the walk. Soon, the brook itself came into view, a ribbon of clear water shimmering as it navigated a course around and over a bed of smooth, variously sized stones. It wasn't a rushing torrent, but a gentle flow, its surface broken by small ripples and eddies where the water encountered obstacles, creating fleeting patterns of light and reflection. Sunlight, finding openings in the tree canopy above this more open space, dappled the water, making parts of it sparkle as if strewn with tiny diamonds, while other areas remained in cool, clear shadow. Rowan paused at the edge of the low bank, which was soft with a carpet of moss and short, resilient grasses. The murmur of the water was more distinct now, a soothing, constant presence, a gentle music that seemed to wash away any lingering thoughts, leaving only the quiet awareness of the moment. Rowan knelt by the water's edge, the damp earth cool beneath one knee. The clarity of the brook was remarkable. Every stone on its bed was visible, their shapes and colors muted grays, soft browns, occasional darker, almost black stones, and even some with faint veins of white quartz, all softened and subtly distorted by the gentle current. Small, nimble water insects darted across the surface in quick, erratic movements, their tiny legs creating almost invisible dimples on the water's skin. Leaning closer, Rowan watched a single leaf fallen from an overhanging branch as it was caught by the current and slowly pirouetted downstream, a tiny, silent traveler on its own journey. The sound of the water was multifaceted, the general murmur, the slightly higher gurgle as it passed around a larger stone, the almost silent whisper as it slid over smoother sections. Carefully, Rowan reached a hand towards the water. The coolness was immediate and refreshing as fingers dipped beneath the surface. The current tugged gently, a playful light pressure. Looking intently, Rowan's gaze settled on a cluster of small, particularly dark pebbles nestled together near the bank. They were perfectly smooth, their surfaces rounded and polished by countless years of the water's patient caress. Selecting one, Rowan's fingers closed around its cool, sleek form. It was perhaps the size of a small bird's egg, fitting comfortably in the palm. Its surface was flawless, almost silky to the touch. Another, slightly flatter and wider, was chosen next, its edges softly chamfered by the brook's timeless work. A third, smaller still and almost perfectly spherical, completed the initial selection. Lifting them from the water, Rowan held them for a moment, observing how the light caught their now wet, glistening surfaces. The coolness they retained was a pleasant sensation against the warmth of the skin. There was a satisfying, tangible reality to them, a sense of condensed nature held in the hand. One by one, Rowan placed them into the soft, waiting canvas pocket. They settled with a faint, muffled clink, their combined weight a small, reassuring presence. Rowan didn't hurry this process. Each movement was gentle, almost reverent, an appreciation for these simple found objects. The act of selection was intuitive, guided by touch and sight, a quiet interaction with the natural offerings of the brook. Rowan remained by the waterside for a few more moments, simply listening and observing. A small fish, no bigger than a finger, darted from beneath an overhanging fern root, hovered in the current for a second, and then disappeared back into the shadows. The sunlight continued its play on the water, the patterns ever shifting, mesmerizing in their gentle complexity. The air here, close to the brook, seemed to hum with a quiet vitality. The gentle weight in the pocket was a subtle anchor, a reminder of the brook's gifts. The coolness of the just-handled stones lingered on Rowan's fingertips, a tactile memory. With a slow breath, Rowan rose, the sound of the brook already beginning to recede slightly as the path called onward, though its soothing murmur would remain a gentle echo in the mind for some time. The first treasures of the day were secured not for their monetary value, but for their simple intrinsic beauty and the quiet joy of their discovery. Chapter 3. Sunlight on Worn Stone. Leaving the immediate vicinity of the brook, the path began a very gradual ascent. The sound of the water slowly softened, fading into the background hum of the woods, replaced once more by the gentle crunch of gravel underfoot and the rustling of leaves. The trees here were a little more spaced out, allowing more sunlight to reach the ground. The air warmed noticeably, losing the distinct coolness of the waterside and taking on the gentle, dry warmth of a sunlit clearing. After a short while, Rowan approached a familiar landmark, a large, flat-topped boulder partially embedded in the earth at the side of the path, its upper surface worn smooth by time and weather. It was a natural resting place, perfectly positioned to catch the mid-morning sun. Rowan stepped off the path and settled onto the stone. Its surface, warmed by the sun, radiated a gentle heat that seeped pleasantly through the thin fabric of clothing, a comforting, grounding sensation. From this slightly elevated position, there was a clear view back down a stretch of the path and across to a small cluster of silver birch trees, their white bark almost luminous in the bright light. The gentle breeze, which had been a mere whisper earlier, was a little more active here, causing the leaves on the surrounding bushes to shimmer and sway, creating a soft, continuous rustling, like the sound of distant, gentle applause. Rowan sat for a moment, simply absorbing the warmth and the light, feeling the solidness of the ancient stone beneath. Then, reaching into the canvas pocket, Rowan carefully retrieved the pebbles collected from the brook. One by one they were drawn out, their coolness a slight contrast to the sun-warmed skin of Rowan's hand. They were laid out in a small, informal row on the flattest part of the sun-drenched stone. The direct sunlight transformed them. Their wet gloss had now dried to a soft, matte finish, but the light revealed subtle nuances in their color and texture that had been less apparent in the shadier light by the brook. The darkest pebble now showed hints of deep, subtle plum amidst the gray. The flatter one had tiny, almost invisible flecks of mica that caught the light with minute, brief sparks. The smallest, roundest one was a uniform, soft charcoal. Rowan picked one up, turning it slowly between finger and thumb. Its smoothness was deeply satisfying, a texture perfected by nature's slow artistry. There were no sharp edges, no roughness, just a continuous, pleasing curve. The weight of it, though small, felt substantial, a tiny piece of the earth's ancient story held in the palm. Rowan then picked up another, comparing its feel to the first. Though both were smooth, there were subtle differences. One was slightly more polished, the other had a faintly more velvety texture. These were differences that only slow, careful attention could discern. There was a quiet absorption in this simple act of observation, a focused awareness that emptied the mind of everything but the pebbles themselves and the gentlest sensations of the moment, the warmth of the sun, the feel of the stone, the sight of the pebbles. A small iridescent beetle, its shell gleaming with metallic blues and greens, landed on the edge of the large stone, paused, as if taking in its surroundings, and then slowly trundled across a patch of lichen. Rowan watched its unhurried progress, another small life sharing this peaceful moment. The sounds here were gentle, the rustle of leaves, the distant lazy buzz of a bee investigating a patch of nearby wildflowers, the occasional chirp of a cricket hidden in the grass. The world felt slow, unhurried, steeped in a profound and simple calm. The pebbles lay on the stone like tiny silent offerings to the sun, each one unique, each one a small testament to the beauty of the unassuming. Rowan spent some time just looking at them, appreciating their collective presence, the way their different shades of gray, brown, and near black complemented each other. They were ordinary, yet in their ordinariness lay a quiet perfection. They asked for nothing, simply existed, their form shaped by forces far older and grander than human concerns. This moment of quiet contemplation, surrounded by the gentle warmth and light, felt complete in itself. There was a sense of connection, not just to the pebbles, but to the stone they rested on, to the path, to the trees, to the very air itself. After a while, Rowan carefully gathered the pebbles again, their surfaces now slightly warmed by the sun, and returned them to the soft pocket. The gentle weight settled reassuringly, a familiar presence once more. The brief rest had been restorative, a pause that allowed for a deeper appreciation of these simple treasures and the tranquil beauty of the Heron Creek Path. Chapter 4. The Pocket's Gentle Weight. Rising from the sun-warmed stone, Rowan continued along the Heron Creek Path. The small collection of pebbles, now nestled securely within the soft canvas, created a gentle, almost imperceptible weight in the pocket. It wasn't a burden, but rather a comforting, subtle pressure, a quiet reminder of the morning's simple discoveries by the brook and the peaceful interlude on the sunlit boulder. With each step, the pebbles would shift slightly, sometimes making a very faint, muffled clicking sound, a tiny private music that only Rowan could hear. This sensation, the feeling of their smooth, cool surfaces through the fabric, became a kind of anchor, grounding Rowan in the present moment, in the rhythm of the walk. The path now began to wind through a slightly denser area of trees. The canopy above became more continuous, filtering the sunlight into a softer, more diffused glow. The air here felt a little cooler again, and the scents changed subtly, the dry warmth of the open clearing giving way to the richer, more complex aroma of deeper woodland, the smell of damp leaf litter, the faint, earthy fragrance of mushrooms, and the clean, resinous tang of pine from a small stand of conifers growing on a nearby slope. The sounds also became more muted. The rustle of leaves was softer, more of a whisper, and the calls of birds seemed to come from further away, their notes softened by the intervening foliage. It felt like stepping into a quieter, more enclosed space, a natural nave formed by the overarching trees. Rowan's attention, no longer focused on seeking new pebbles, turned more to the textures and patterns of the immediate surroundings. The bark of the trees here was varied and interesting. Some older oaks had deeply furrowed bark, like the weathered skin of an ancient giant, their crevices providing homes for tiny insects and patches of vibrant green moss. The silver birches, fewer in this denser section, still stood out, their pale bark peeling in delicate paper-thin strips. Rowan paused to run a finger lightly over a patch of moss growing on the trunk of a fallen tree. It was surprisingly soft and yielding, like a miniature verdant carpet, cool and slightly damp to the touch. The intricate patterns of its growth, the tiny star-like shapes of its individual plants, were a source of quiet fascination. The path itself was softer here, the gravel giving way to packed earth, cushioned by a thin layer of fallen leaves and pine needles. Footsteps made less sound, a soft thud rather than a crunch, adding to the sense of hush that pervaded this part of the woods. Rowan noticed the way the light, where it did penetrate the canopy, created isolated pools of brightness on the forest floor, illuminating a patch of ferns or a cluster of smooth gray stones that, for a moment, looked like another potential collection, though the pocket already felt satisfyingly complete. The gentle weight within it served as a quiet contentment, a feeling that enough had been gathered for one day. Occasionally, Rowan would instinctively reach a hand to the pocket, fingers brushing against the fabric, feeling the subtle outline of the pebbles within. It was a small, unconscious gesture, a fleeting connection to the tangible reminders of the walk's earlier moments. The focus was less on active searching now, and more on a gentle, receptive observation of the overarching atmosphere of the woods. The slow, rhythmic movement of walking, the gentle sway of the body, the steady in and out of breath, all contributed to a state of peaceful immersion. The mind was quiet, not empty, but filled with the gentle sensory input of the forest, the dappled light, the soft sounds, the earthy smells, the cool air. The path took a slow, meandering turn around a large, moss-covered rock outcropping. Here, in a particularly shaded and damp spot, a profusion of delicate ferns grew, their fronds a vibrant, almost electric green against the dark, moist earth. Rowan paused to admire their graceful shapes, the way new fronds were tightly coiled, like tiny green fists, waiting to unfurl. The detail in nature was endless, a constant source of quiet wonder. The gentle weight in the pocket was a reassuring counterpoint to the ethereal beauty of the ferns, a small piece of the solid earth carried along. This part of the walk was about absorption, about allowing the peace of the woods to seep in undisturbed by the need to do anything other than be present. The subtle pressure of the pebbles was a constant, gentle reminder of the simple joys found along the way, a quiet hum beneath the main melody of the forest's embrace. Chapter 5. Returning with Quiet Treasures. The dense canopy began to thin once more, and the quality of light shifted, becoming brighter, more open. Patches of blue sky were visible again through the thinning leaves overhead. The path, still soft underfoot, started a gentle, almost imperceptible descent. Rowan recognized these signs. The end of this particular loop of the Heron Creek Path was approaching. A familiar sense of quiet completion settled in, not sadness at the walk's end, but a peaceful acknowledgement of its natural cycle. The gentle weight of the pebbles in the pocket, which had been a constant, subtle companion, now felt like a collection of tangible memories, small emblems of the morning's serene journey. As Rowan emerged from the more wooded section, the low stone walls reappeared on either side of the path, guiding the way back towards the starting point. The sounds of the wider world, though still muted, became slightly more discernible, perhaps the distant hum of a lawnmower or the faint bark of a dog, reminders of the everyday life that existed beyond this tranquil corridor. But these sounds did not intrude. Rather, they served to highlight the profound peace that the path had offered. The air here was warmer again, carrying the scent of sun-warmed grass and the faint, sweet fragrance of some late-blooming wildflowers nodding in the verges. Rowan's pace remained unhurried, savoring these last few moments on the path. The hand instinctively went to the pocket one more time, fingers gently tracing the outlines of the smooth stones within. There was a quiet satisfaction in their presence, a feeling of having gathered something precious, not in monetary value, but in experiential richness. Each pebble represented a moment of observation, a connection to the brook, to the sunlight on the stone, to the simple act of being present in nature. They were small, unassuming anchors to a morning spent in quiet contemplation. Reaching the end of the path where the gravel met a slightly wider, more tended lane, Rowan paused for a moment, looking back along the way just traveled. The entrance to the path looked inviting, a gentle archway of trees beckoning towards the peace within. With a soft sigh, not of weariness, but of contentment, Rowan turned towards home. The transition from the seclusion of the path to the slightly more open environment was gentle, almost seamless, carrying the quietude of the walk along. Back indoors. The atmosphere was different from the vibrant stillness of the path, yet it held its own familiar comfort. Rowan walked over to a simple wooden windowsill, bathed in the soft light filtering through a clean window pane. Taking the pebbles from the canvas pocket one last time, Rowan laid them out carefully on a small, unadorned wooden tray that rested there. The act of arranging them was slow and deliberate. The darkest one first, then the flatter, mica-flecked one beside it, and finally the small, perfectly round one. They looked beautiful against the warm grain of the wood, their subtle colors and smooth shapes highlighted by the gentle indoor light. They were no longer just stones from a brook. They were reminders, talismans of peace. Rowan stood for a moment, looking at the small collection. They brought a tiny piece of the Heron Creek Path serenity into the room. The light caught the faint sheen on their dried surfaces, and the memory of the cool water, the warm sun, and the gentle murmur of the brook returned, vivid and pleasant. There was a quiet rightness to their presence on the windowsill, a simple, understated display of nature's artistry. The walk was over, but its gentle resonance, embodied in these smooth, silent stones, would linger, a quiet treasure held not just in a pocket, but in the heart.